Speaking of reliability, a podcast with good friends talking with you about reliability engineering topics. Welcome to Speaking of Reliability. This is Fred Schenkelberg.
And this is Kirk Gray.
Hey, Kirk.
Hey, Fred. Good to talk to you.
Yeah. Hey, good talking to you again. And hey, happy birthday. It was,
Thank you.
It was yesterday as of today being the day we're recording.
Yes.
I don't think that gives away any personal information, but, I'll give you a shout out.
Thank you.
And sorry for the last minute change. I have given up on Skype. We've been using that for 1,000 episodes?
Pretty much since we started.
And it has a little add-on called Call Recorder. And I was opened up Skype and Call Recorder didn't come up. And I'm like, oh man, all right, I got to reinstall it. And it still wasn't working. So I said, all right, bail. We're going to Skype or going to Zoom and we'll record there. And I might just go there on out. But what it reminded me of, and as we were chatting at the start, is that, and I know you've been working on projects that the point where the design is frozen, and then you can say, all right, we need to fine tune it and make sure we can make it consistently.
Right.
Almost as a squishy target. I rarely have found a team that had actual design freezes.
Right. They're really having to make judgments. When you have you're making a product like Zoom or Skype or Teams or whatever you're doing, you got competition, you've got other people making a similar product. And it's really tough because they're constantly improving their product and adding features. And you're trying to build the initial, build the product you're wanting to build, but your marketing people come to you and say, hey, this guy, our major competitor added this feature, and can you add this?
And now they're all adding AI.
Yeah, now they're right. Exactly. Everybody's got AI. And have their own name for it, like Apple Intelligence. Okay, it's AI. Yeah, but anyway, so everybody's doing that, and it's just like any building an actual physical product. It's really challenging to go back and now test each change that you've added to and make sure it doesn't interrupt, or interfere with what you're trying to achieve with the base product.
I think there's two parts to this challenge. There's always the marketing guy that goes, oh, we need to add one more feature.
Right.
Or manager has to have their finger on the scale of some sort or whatever.
Right.
There's that problem. And the challenge supporting a team for its reliability performance is it's a moving target all the time. And we don't get enough due diligence to think through and vet, we'll just use this other component and we'll get this new feature. Well, we've never used that before. And it's from somebody's, red-haired stepchild company. I heard that expression once is I don't want some red-haired stepchild telling me, leaking our product. And of course it was. There was a kid on the internet with red hair holding up the product that was supposed to be super secret.
Yeah.
Doing a film on it. But anyway, that's one issue. And it's a challenge to keep up to speed with what's changing and how does it impact anything else and what risks it provides and all that stuff. And you're under the gun with no time. Right. The second issue is what I experience as a customer is when I opened up Zoom today, it used to be just a thing like Skype. I could call you, you could call me, we could do a video call, we could do a meeting.
Right.
And now it's got a chalkboard, it's got an AI companion. There's probably 50 different things in there. And just looking for where's the record button, it sometimes gets what button? There's too many buttons here. I heard about a car. A car ad yesterday had 30 inches of screen on the dashboard. 30-inch screen.
Wow. That's kind of distracting.
I can't imagine what in the world they put, but just think of all the ways that automobiles might be the best thing it used to have when they upgraded to cassette players, they figured out that vibration's not good for cassette players.
Right. Right.
Now there's what 15, 20 computers on a car,
Right. Right.
and there's all kinds of wiring harnesses, all kinds of power draws, all kinds of signal integrity stuff.
Oh yeah.
There's more ways your electronics fail than your
Right.
car than the mechanics can by far.
Oh sure. Yeah. There's just lots of failure points in that system, and that's why I think Consumer Reports has actually said, that or it's given Tesla some poor reliability marks over the years because of
Well,
the amount of electronics that can go that have failed.
a lot of cars are suffering from that. I
A lot
checked
of
the
cars are
auto
suffering from that.
warranty with oh, and I haven't mentioned it in a long time. Is Warranty Week is
Yeah.
a free newsletter that every week comes out with some insight into the warranty is business and who's
Right.
spending more, who's spending less, stuff like that. But the auto industries, by and large, are all paying more in warranty, inflation adjusted, because they have just so much more. It's so much more complicated under the hood in the car.
And yet, the warranties, since I was a young guy many decades ago, they increased quite a bit. So I
Oh
go,
yeah,
10,000 or 100,000 miles for the
10 years for some
10
of them,
years, some, yeah.
and that's a lot of replacing a dashboard kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that's, another big expense that they got. Well, it could be, and it maybe makes it even more important that they have a robust, system for it to last that long.
But it's one of those things where in reliability engineering work, and we're working with a team or working with a
Right.
client,
Right.
and they go, "Oh yeah, we changed that. It's now this, and we
Right.
ran out of space, so we used a smaller component." It's like,
Right.
well, can that smaller component carry the load? Well, we
Right.
hope so.
Right.
You
And
know,
sometimes, changes are forced on you, and the fact that, the component you were buying is no longer manufactured or
yeah,
in a year. And so
yeah,
and those happen behind way past the product market introduction. And so, a lot of times we never heard about it and the change that was a problem later, because, they to go back and retest all the computers that had changes to them was virtually impossible. I mean,
yeah.
it wasn't possible because there were so many different models. Each one had a few different components, whatever. And so I would review them, but, very rarely could I say that I know this is going to be an issue or this is going to be, that we ought to retest for it.
Yeah, and I see that a lot with change management. Is that it will send a memo around. Anybody has a real problem with it can raise their hand, and it's under a time constraint. It's a big, kind of a forced
Right.
change. It's all
Right.
these other things. Like, well, even if I say no, there's no option. So why say no?
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
but it's one of those where and I have run into teams that make a very elegant design. And it's absolutely beautiful. They
Uh-huh.
got plenty of space.
Right.
They locked down the feature set that they're trying to build very early, and the senior management is no, we're not adding anything else. We're going to get this right. And it's such a
Yeah.
joy working with a team like that, because
Yeah.
the entire team has a focus, the space, the resources to say, all right, we got to think through the robustness of this. We got to think through the durability of this. We got to think through, instead of doing an FMEA and putting it on the shelf, let's do the FMEA and actually work off the top 20 things,
Yeah.
and mitigate stuff. Let's do halt 6 times and find and fix everything that we possibly can. That
Yeah.
is very, very rare in my
Yeah.
experience.
Well, I would, in Halt, I would just also use the terminology. Let's make it as robust as we can
Yep.
in the shortest time we can, and have to leave it at that. With
Well, I mean, it's a nice tool. It's a great tool. And we've talked about it so many times in
right,
the design process to find
right,
those weaknesses.
right,
It really works. I'm thinking of one company in particular, is that they made they took pride in making an elegant solution. So the software was clean. and
Mm-hmm.
simple. The
Mm-hmm.
hardware was clean and simple. It was easy
Mm-hmm.
to repair. It was easy to manufacture.
Mm-hmm.
They they really took pains to make it manufacturable and with no special components, no custom, pretty much anything. I think
Yeah.
the outside piece of it was, and it was like a server rack kind of component or piece that went
Yeah.
in a server rack. It
Yeah.
didn't have to look fancy. It didn't need
No.
purple grates and
No. Yeah.
flashing lights or anything like that. Uh,
Yeah. Only very few people are going to see it.
yeah,
Doesn't impress anybody.
I think one of their goals was if we make it clean and simple and keep the functionality, well within the specs of the equipment,
Yeah.
it will run quieter. We don't need to have roaring fans going all the time. We're
Right.
not dissipating all this heat. It's
Right.
it did its job. It did it well, and customers loved it because once they got it, it just worked.
Right.
And
Sometimes simple is the best. I mean, just really basic, It's just like some of these software packages we just talked about how they're adding everything to it, all these
yeah,
other features, which maybe some percentage use, but the vast majority of us want to do what we're doing now, just have a conversation. And in your case, we want to record it
yeah,
for a podcast. And that doesn't, that's fairly simple. We don't need to, I don't know, all the other features. I noticed that on Skype, they're going to have, they suddenly posted the news. And I don't care about the news or
I'm not on
that's
Skype
not
to get
not
my
on
news.
Sky. Yeah, this why did they add that? Why do I need to see the headlines?
Yeah,
I'm right. I'm about to make a call. If I want to go to see the news, I go to Google News or whatever.
yeah.
So
Go to an outlet of your choice. Yeah,
yeah, so I know sometimes they add features that it's just like to me, Word and some of these others have incredible capabilities, for referencing, bibliography, all those kinds of things, but most people may not use it that way at all.
no, no, never. The same with PowerPoint and a bunch of others.
Right.
One of the things, though, part of this might actually be a strategy. So there are some companies, and one I ran into years ago, and it was in the telecommunications space. So making routers and hubs and
Right.
switches, stuff
Switches.
like that, right? And it was part of the industry is they would come out with, we're launching this product, we're announcing
Right.
this product, and um, they would lead on to like it's going to have these 87 new features or
Okay.
it is a laundry list of stuff. And I
Right.
says, you
Right.
really going to put all this stuff in there? He goes, oh no, we're only doing three of the things we think are important. It's just to make our competitors spend more money. It was just a game they
Yeah.
played.
Okay. So they were making it up to scare their competitors, and then they just gave.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
it could slow their competitors down because we got to add this feature to our product too.
that's right.
So
Or they would come up with something. They'd say, oh, we're going to do, this is way back when, and like they can get gigabyte speed. And
yeah.
then they'd buy one of their products and reverse engineer it. And then
Yeah.
it saved a whole bunch of money on development stuff. So it was a strategic game in that industry at that time. I don't know if it's
Right.
still that way,
Right.
of brinksmanship and specsmanship and all that other stuff. And
Right.
more than half of the stuff in this one project I was working on, oh no, we
Right.
don't do all that. We're doing these three things, which our customers really want, and we're
Right.
skipping the rest of it.
Do those really three things really, really well. And that's maybe an 80 or 89 to 9, whatever percent of the market, 90% of the market just wants those features. There's another 10%. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody else can service them, but we're not
That's
doing it.
right. Right. Let's keep it simple and keep it inexpensive and, things like that. Because,
Yeah. So I guess if I in charge of a development team and had a magic wand, I'd do something like that. But there's all kinds of other forces at play. There's a major
oh,
customer who
sure.
says, no, 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 no. I want it to be blue.
Yeah.
And like, okay, whatever.
I want it to be this size. I want it to
Yeah.
be, so, yeah. And so, it's a constant dynamic environment when you're developing a product, and you've got to always make engineering judgments about how easy it is to change something and how much uh re retesting and work you're going to have to do. It's why a lot of aircraft, they don't make changes easily because qualification by the
Oh, the
FAA
FAA is
is
just
just
horribly expensive.
horribly
Yeah.
expensive. So they'll use old technologies just so they don't have to requalify the product or spend the
Until
hun-
they
pri-
get caught.
yeah, until they get caught.
Until
So
something happens. But yeah,
yeah,
it's complexity has and when we have analog or what do they call it? Analog brakes? Is that
yeah,
there's
yeah,
a system in it that
right,
detects it sliding, so it
right,
releases the wheel,
yeah,
and it saved lives. There's no doubt about it.
right.
So
Just like
there's no
airbags.
doubt that
Hmm.
the technology adds benefits, and yet I don't think anybody really needs a 30-inch screen on their dashboard. I
Well,
don't
in the
know. It might be
future,
famous last words. Maybe my next car will have wraparound screens and no steering wheel. I'll just sit into
well,
my 3D, my mini dome like they have
you
in.
know, as I age, Fred, I'm hoping that they will have truly self-driving cars and we get humans off the road. And the 30-inch screen, we can just watch movies
Yeah,
while
there you
they're
go.
driving. Okay.
Yeah,
So I know this is going to happen eventually. I think our biggest problem with this all is the fact that we have humans driving cars intermixing and humans that don't follow the rules and can't
yep,
communicate 30 miles in advance to the other cars, so that's something that will be
that's
a
going to be
revolution. Yeah, and I'm
yeah,
looking forward to it because I don't want to drive. I'd rather do something else while I'm getting there.
yeah,
And
yeah. No, that's why I enjoyed commuting because I was either carpooling or I was taking the train. I could read or take a nap or
right,
read
right.
the
There's a lot of
news or
things we want
whatever.
to do. Right. So and it's safer, and that'll be the ultimate, is
Yeah,
it'll be safer for everybody.
yeah.
So, but
But
anyway,
so what do we do? Is you're working with the team and you're in that environment where there's going to be changes.
yeah.
I mean, you mentioned part of it is, you do the assessment, you figure out how's this going to
Mm-hmm.
impact stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue I have is that it also has to be a company or an organization that you're safe to say, hey, wait a second, this is a high risk thing. This is unproven. This
Right.
is the downside if you add it,
Right. Right.
or the potential downside of it. Right now, we
Right.
just don't know.
Right.
And if you're immediately shot down, you'll never raise your hand again and complain about anything until it's I told you so kind of time.
Right. And it's too late
Then
then.
it's way too
Yeah.
late.
And you'll be probably
Why didn't you catch
reorganized.
this? Yeah, why didn't you catch this? Like, well, last time I talked to you, you said go to hell. So like,
Right. Yeah.
what's the point?
Yeah.
The I think the guidance I give folks when they're facing that, and in what I try to remember when I'm doing it, is get your facts straight. What's the evidence you have? What's the research you got? What is the nature of the unknowns and how real is it? And like we're setting up. I was actually working with a team and we're setting up to the last round of halt with the real intention of finding out what our margins were so we could set up a good half system
Right.
and
Right.
also check some of the changes that we just made.
Right.
And this one part was starting to crack. It hadn't failed yet, but
Okay.
there shouldn't be a crack there,
No.
kind of thing.
No. It's
And
a precursor to failure.
right. And it would require a pretty substantial redesign for the system.
Okay.
Somehow this piece hadn't showed up in previous system, the shock and vibration stuff we're
Right.
doing, and hadn't showed up, or we hadn't noticed it because we had so many other things failing.
Okay.
And you show pictures and you say, if this fails, then if this attachment here cracks through, we lose this, and this functionality.
Right.
It's not dead. It's pretty damn cold though.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Right.
It's not a good picture.
Yeah.
And it was, well, how long will it take to last? How far it was like, and I need an answer tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's like,
so yeah, what does that mean in years in the field?
yeah, is
Okay.
this a real failure or not? Oh, you
Well,
overstressed it. It was all of that kind of stuff. And even
yeah.
though the team pretty much was bought into halt in the whole process, it was now more arguments came up. And to be realistic is that the rest of the team was, a week away from starting production. They
Uh-huh.
were 2 months away from launching the product.
Yeah.
They had, all this marketing in place. They had all
Mm-hmm.
this others, all the supply chains all
Mm-hmm.
set up. The design team's already starting to peel off to go to the next program.
Okay.
It was an immense amount of pressure. Now we are just going to hope it isn't a real problem. And hope's really great.
Yeah.
It's not physics though. It's not
Yeah.
science. It's not
Yeah.
in, one manager is like, well, that's why we get paid the big bucks to make these tough decisions. Like, all right.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
realize you're not going to be here in 6 months when this all hits the fan.
Exactly.
And he goes, well, yeah,
Exactly.
there is convenient that
Exactly.
way.
Yeah. I'm going to make this decision and I'll be in the next department in a few, months, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd say, did you take another, I'd kind of question about, did you take another sample? What was the distribution of that crack producing
Oh yeah.
stress?
No, it was like, it was just,
Every one of them, you had 5 samples and every one of them
no,
showed.
no, no. We only had one, and it
Yeah,
was, because everything else was spoken for and out on demos
sure,
and everything else. The
sure.
typical, we'll give you one sample, but don't break it,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
And but the
Don't break
ability
it,
to
right?
raise your hand and say, hey, there's a problem. There are organizations I've worked with where they get that and they'll
Right,
delay the program.
right,
They'll, you know, go get the better information, go sort it
right,
out, get all,
right,
put the resources on it to make sure that we make the right decision.
right.
It's just that in my experiences, that's not the common approach. And
No,
part of it is setting up as you work in reliability is do build a track record that when you say, this doesn't look good, that it
right,
truly is a real problem. Is,
right.
you can't cry wolf. What's the fairy tale? The little boy was crying wolf
Yeah,
when he was watching the sheep and finally got eaten
right,
by the wolf.
right. It's hard not to, sometimes think that you see warning signs and you do cry wolf, and it isn't, it isn't what. So yeah, you've got to be very careful and selective about where you pull the brake, where you pull the cord on the train,
Yeah.
and when, because obviously lots of people are involved, and you may delay the program, and that's a serious consideration. But
Yeah.
it's hard to, you got to go somehow demonstrate or show a logical connection from what that crack propagating, and then knowing the environment that it's going to be in, and knowing, again, if somebody could tell me exactly what that environment, that life cycle, all the stresses and how often and
Mm-hmm.
what the distribution was, I could tell you how long that crack will be before it
Yeah.
becomes a failure. But you don't know that.
Not
Nobody knows
always,
that.
no. Not, and it's a matter of getting your right time. Yeah, the easiest ones is I had a handheld device, and if you, it was meant to be held while you were clapping. It was
Oh
kind of a
boy.
thing to keep track with music, kind of thing. Are
Yeah.
you on beat
Yeah.
or not? It would score you on it.
Yeah.
And so we found it in Halt that this part which become a dead short to the battery pack, and it would
Yeah.
smoke it. It would actually, that line would take all the battery power pretty quickly, and it was going through some polymers, and it would melt the polymer. So you get this smoky
Yeah.
polymer smell in the room.
Right. An exothermal reaction.
Yeah, yeah, a rapid disassembly,
Yeah. Yeah.
rapid chemical
Yeah.
disassembly.
Exactly. A way of.
And they said, well, that was in a Halt test. So I took a sample and it turned it on and it was working. And I started clapping, and about 10 claps into it, it went to a dead short. And I says, it doesn't take much to make this happen.
Yeah.
It's a
Exactly.
design flaw.
Yeah.
We need to fix that. And they, oh, okay, we need to fix that.
Right. Right. And especially handheld devices, man. There is going to be a point that you can't. People can break it. You run over your phone with a car. Yeah, you're probably gonna. It's probably not gonna make it, and you
Yeah.
can't really make a phone, or there's no reason to make a phone that can withstand 2,000 pounds of a wheel rolling over it,
Yeah.
or a horse stepping on it, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, it's a challenge. We all
It's
are
a
going to face it.
challenge.
If you haven't already, look for it. Be
Yeah.
aware, understand that there's many other factors involved, and do your homework, and cry wolf or raise the flag or whatever the right term is for your organization.
Right.
When you've got a solid case that, and if
Right.
they overrule you, well, it's not your decision. So move on, you know?
Right. And sometimes you have to do things on your own to make sure you're correct about your, evaluation of the problem.
That's what I mean by
before you go to
homework.
management. Right. Before you go to management, make sure that you know what you're talking about and have either an example of it and putting it in a chamber like you did, showing it cracks, whatever, before you go and cry wolf.
Yeah, maybe that's the name of this episode, Crying Wolf, but
Yeah.
maybe not. But anyway,
Yep.
it's an issue. I'm very curious if, if folks that are listening, if you've run into it, or if you've, how do you handle it? And have you noticed that as you get closer to launch date, that things still change and things still get discovered, yet the threshold for taking action on it changes. And I think that's a common phenomenon. But I'd love to hear what your input is, or ideas, or any thoughts or ideas of how you go about solving this or dealing with it. That'd be excellent information for us to share through the podcast. So let us know. Head over to accendoreliability.com/go/SOR. There's a couple of ways to get in touch with us. And there's also Kirk and I and the other hosts of the show are available through LinkedIn and our About pages. So I know I'm not designing a product right now at the moment, but I have a woodworking project that I just thought of an extra feature I need to add to it. I'll see how it goes.
Yeah, keep polishing that design, Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll talk again, Fred.
All right. Talk to you later, Kirk. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Speaking of Reliability. We invite you to join the conversation. If you have a question or a topic that you think we should discuss in a future show, please let us know. You can find a comment box below the episode show notes, or just leave a note as part of a review on iTunes.